Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and boys and girls, dogs and cats, wherever you might be, whatever you might be. Thank you all for joining me tonight. Today's going to be a different kind of show from Dota 101. Definitely a different topic from what we saw last time, but before we get into that, I have to tell you guys, my cooking misadventures, they continue. So I don't like cooking. That's why I cook a big batch of chicken every week. I don't enjoy it. I don't mind the cooking itself. I don't mind the eating of the food. What I really dislike is the cleanup. Cleanup is such a pain in the ass. I hate the scrubbing and the, and then they're never really clean enough. They have to go back and do it all over again. Ugh, it doesn't leave a good feeling. So I try to avoid cooking as much as possible. It's too messy, too much work to clean up. So I discovered a new technique today, and I think you guys are going to like this. So the trick is, I make eggs every morning now. Eggs, egg whites, and then a bunch of vegetables. The trick to this is, you microwave the eggs. If you microwave the eggs, there's nothing to clean up. There's no pan, there's nothing like that. Now, as far as taste goes, well, it's a little lacking. But unfortunately, there are some unexpected consequences when you microwave eggs. Now, is anyone out there, just going to poll the audience, have any of you guys done it before? Has anyone tried to microwave eggs? Does anybody know what happens when you microwave them, if you do it too long? Am I stupid? That's one response. It sounds disgusting. Qwerty's got it. Yeah, if you microwave them too long, they explode. And so this was my first day where this actually happened to me because I set the timer for too long. From the other room, I live in North Philly, or not quite in North Philly, but like right on the border between North Philly and Center City. So it's not the best area, and you do hear gunshots from time to time at night. And I hear something like a gunshot, except it's coming from the next room. So I freak out, I jolt out of my chair, and I run over to the kitchen. And it was actually just the eggs. But yeah, the bachelor life, I think that is the way to put it. Anyway, don't microwave your eggs, or if you do, be very, very careful about it. Okay, so that's sort of our food adventure of the day. I'm sure we'll have more in the future. But with all that being said, let's get down to the nitty-gritty for today. Today is going to be a different kind of daily. It's not a 101 series, and I'll talk about the 101 and how it's going to change for next time when we get to that. But for today, it will be a very focused guide, a little bit more high level, and we're going to focus on Windrunner today. So my goal for you guys is that you walk away from this knowing a little bit more about Windrunner, and then a little bit more about something else, which I'm going to call an important game concept. And today the topic is the concept of applying pressure to your opponents. So we'll dive into it now, and actually I'm going to bring up my handy-dandy little outline for y'all. Well, there's three main points that I want you guys to focus on, and we'll get to all of them later, but for now, this is the first one that I want to talk about. I will keep this concept of pressure in mind as we discuss the topic today. Today's daily, it's about Windrunner, and we will talk a lot about it, but it's also about creating pressure, the idea of pressure, applying pressure to your opponents. And the first point that I want to make about pressure is that if you play aggressively, it creates pressure in one area of the map. So the best way to create pressure, be aggressive. And, well, if you want to sort of, put a little play on words here, pressure, it can turn a lump of coal into a flawless diamond, or an average person into a perfect basket case. We don't all deal with pressure well, and we all have our own ways of dealing with it. So that's our first sort of focus point. But with all that being said, let's jump right into the game and get started talking about Windrunner. So I'm going to be going solo mid as Windrunner, and I think this is the best place to go if you want to apply that pressure. Again, there'll be lots of little tidbits and details about Windrunner, but keep this idea of pressure and how to apply it in your minds firmly as we go through it. For the entire time, I'm going to just use the player perspective. Once in a while, I might direct you to the minimap. I might pause and show you some things, but you're just going to see it from my first-person perspective. So I'm going solo mid, and you're going to notice right now I'm doing something called creep blocking. If you're not familiar with this, the way that I do it is I tap the S key to stop my hero's movement forward. You'll see the pros, they sort of move back and forth. My mouse control is not the best, so I find this stop technique better. There's a couple of ways to do it. You'll see that I'm rushing a bottle here. I actually have 3 branches. I'm saving for a quick bottle. I only need about 100 gold to get it. Now, the downside of this build is you don't really have much regen, so if you get harassed early on, you're going to be in for some trouble. But Windrunner, very good here at harassing. And actually, you're going to see right now I get initiated on. I've picked up Windrun, and I always recommend doing this, especially if you're new. Just get your escape mechanism at level 1. Once in a while, you'll be able to set up a kill, but particularly a Windrunner, you're very unlikely to do so, especially in this 1v1 situation. So get Windrun, and you can see there, 3-man gank, a bunch of wasted time for them. I do take some harassment, but it's not going to delay my bottle. So we're going to see me last hitting here, pretty much just trying my best to get that early bottle up. And the early bottle's so crucial whenever you go mid, but especially on a hero like Windrunner, Has a lot of mana-dependent spells. I'm taking a little bit too much creep harassment. More than you should. Not last save best. Don't worry about all these little mistakes I'm making. First of all, everyone makes them, and me more so than others, of course. But that's not really the focus here. The goal is to see how I go about trying to dominate this lane, how I go about trying to win the lane, and how I go about trying to apply pressure. You can always find room for improvement with hitting shackle shots, hitting better power shots. This is not the highest level Windrunner player ever going to see, but it will be instructional nonetheless. So using power shot here, for anyone who's not familiar with power shot, it is an AoE damage ability with a very long range. It's pretty low cooldown, pretty decent amount of damage. You can use it to last hit creeps. You can also use it to push the wave. And so you saw there, I used power shot, get myself 2 creep kills. I now have a healing salve and my bottle. And I want you guys all to take a look at the game time right now. It's 1:56. The rune is about to spawn. This is why you want to have the bottle. The one thing you might not have noticed is that, I'm not sure if you pay attention, but my teammate was actually trying to use the courier to set himself. What was it? It was that 400. It's a very cheap, unimportant item for the stage of the game. Which one was it? In fact, now I'm curious and I must see. It was the Boots of Elven Skin. You could buy that from the side shop, and you should never, never steal the courier from your teammate if he's solo mid. If you're going to, you need to ask. So I said, no man, I'm taking this. I need this courier, and that's exactly what I did. The reason I wanted it... My teammates aren't useless. But you know, it's something that will happen in pub games is teammates will use the courier without asking. Courier etiquette to me is one of these things where if you're new, you don't know any better. But you'll get better at it as you get more experience.
First blood.
My team actually gets first blood, so, you know, see, they're not useless after all. So you'll see that I pushed the lane. I spammed power shot a couple times. This allows me to check the rune. The creeps push into the enemy tower, and then I don't miss too much experience. I don't miss too much gold. Every time you go to check a rune, you're missing out on something. You're either missing last hits, you're missing opportunity to harass the enemy, you're missing opportunity to do damage to the tower. So make sure that you limit that by pushing the lane as much as possible before you go. So we're actually going to go ahead and speed this up to 2 times here. And you're going to see, you know, just some back and forth, some last hitting. I'm last hitting decently. I have about 4 CS a minute. I'm going to sit around 4 or 5 for a while. Again, that level 1 gank attempt, it did slow me down. And it let Shadow Fiend get a lot of last hits. One thing that I should point out here is I just used Windrun in the lane. Windrun gives you evasion, so whenever you use it, it will actually prevent you from taking damage from physical attacks, as a general rule. There are exceptions, like if your opponent has an MKB, they can still do damage to you, but generally speaking, you won't take damage. So you can actually use this to trade hits favorably with your opponents. One thing to keep in mind, if your opponent attacks you and then you use Windrun, you don't get the evasion. You only get the evasion if you're Windrunning when the attack is released. So I've actually killed a guy before who was using Windrun like that, and he was freaking out in all chat, not understanding. That is how the spell works. It's a little bit tricky in that regard. So you'll probably notice now, in terms of the skill build, this is the very standard way to play. I see a question in the chat about it. Normally you want to max power shot first, get 1 point Windrun, and then max shackle shot. Sometimes you'll see the Chinese players opt for 2 points. It's particularly popular in Asia, so I mentioned the Chinese. They'll opt for 2 points of Windrun just to give you a little bit of extra survivability. But if you look at the way the skill scales, it's very good even at level 1. You get almost 3 seconds of duration from 1 point of Windrun. Whereas for Shackle Shot, it really scales up well the more you level it. And let's talk a little bit about Shackle Shot now that I bring it up. For anyone who's not familiar with Shackle Shot, it has the opportunity to latch a hero to either a tree or an enemy creep. So let's say I target the Shadow Fiend. If there's a creep or an enemy hero behind him, I can hold the 2 together and they're disabled. And the duration depends on what level the ability is. So in theory, if you get a level 4 Shackle Shot on 2 heroes, it's 3.75 times 2 seconds of disable, because there's 2 units being disabled, which works out to be 7.5 seconds of disable on a 12-second cooldown. So if you can land your Shackle Shots, it's undoubtedly one of the most broken abilities in the game, but if you don't land it, then it only gives you a mini stun. So it's something where you want to land the ability. It definitely benefits you more. You'll notice now, I've been controlling the runes reasonably well. Tidehunter's trying to harass me. This is really the power of Windrunner in lane. She's very difficult to gank. Even with 1 point of Windrun, you're almost never going to be able to bring her down without really good chain stun, or a hero that can make her Windrun ineffective, like Shadow Demon, who's got Disruption. If you try to use Windrun, he just disrupts you, and then the full duration is pretty much wasted. So the rune's about to spawn at 6 minutes in. Shadow Fiend goes to check at top. I spot him. I try to set up for a gank here. I'm waiting for Nature's Prophet to TP in. And this is a really good trick to know. If you ever have Nature's Prophet on your team, let him sprout first, and it's a guaranteed Shackle Shot. Really easy way to set up. You don't need any skill whatsoever to do that. So really nice combo if you want to try it out. I recommend have a friend pick Nature's Prophet. you can go for these ganks all day. You'll notice my team's really pressuring this middle lane. They've been ganking a lot. They've been doing a great job. And against a hero like Shadowfiend, this is what you need to do. He gets out of hand really quickly if you don't gank him, but he's very squishy. He doesn't have an escape mechanism, and therefore, if you do set up those ganks early on, you can bring him down. So you'll notice now I didn't get the rune. It's well after that 7-minute mark, or that 6-minute mark. So I'm just assuming my enemies got it. We don't have a ward bottom, so I'm actually going to ferry my bottle here. I highly recommend you do this as long as your team doesn't need the courier. I was on team chat with everyone I was playing with, so I knew they didn't need it. Or actually, I thought I ferried it here. Maybe it's later on.
Denied.
And I'm actually going to hold on to it, and am I going to ferry it? Yeah, there you go, LD. So I do go ahead. And basically what you do is you send the... I was alt-tabbed here, so sorry about the camera. It'll go back in a second. But basically, you use the courier, send your bottle back to the fountain. It'll refill automatically. And it's like a semi-fountain trip without having to leave the lane. Right here, we could have gone for a kill on Shadowfiend. I was a little distracted, wasn't paying attention. And, you know, it's just one of those things where you can't pay attention to everything at once in the game. And, you know, in that case, if I had been on top of it, might have been able to hit a shackle shot. And again, Shadowfiend, very easy to kill off at this point of the game. We're going to talk more about the way the shackle shot works. And actually, I guess this is a decent time to do it. Let's wait for the next gank opportunity. Then I'll give you guys like a real in-deep breakdown of how that... real deep breakdown of how that ability works. So we've had a pretty slow start to the game, right? We're about 11 minutes in. There's only been 2 kills. No towers have been claimed. Shadowfiend actually gets a kill on Venomancer, who's going for this haste rune. Now, surprisingly, he opts not to take it. I guess he was afraid of the gank incoming. If I were him, I probably would have chanced it. But he is afraid of that Prophet showing up. You saw Prophet threatening to grab the rune by TPing in. And that's a really nice thing to do if you're Prophet, is help out your allies. You can use that TP ability to control the runes. But he gives away this haste rune to me. I'm level 7, and this is a point of the game where if Windrunner wants to go ganking, she is very dangerous, especially right now. Let's actually pause the game. I'm level 7. They have a level 3 Lion, a level 4 Windrunner. These heroes are very squishy. Even the Tidehunter, he's got about 800 health, but he's not very mobile. He's not that survivable. Bounty Hunter, if I hit him with a power shot, he's dead. Same is true for the Lion, level 3. Power shot's going to wipe out about half of his health, because that power shot is going to do 360 damage. Now, every time the power shot goes through a target, it reduces the amount of damage it does to the next target. So, if you have 10 units in a line here, the unit at the back is going to take a lot less damage than the unit up front. It gets reduced by 10% each time, for each target it pierces. That also applies to trees, I want to say. No, okay, sorry. Little miscommunication there, Robbie. No, it doesn't apply to trees, but it will clear out trees. So that's one of the other benefits of this ability, is you can use it to clear out the trees. So, anyway, let's jump back into the game. I'm going for a gank. Tidehunter spots me out. I have a haste rune bottle, so I'm really not worried about dying. Plus, I see he's level 4. Actually, I should get back on my perspective. So I pop the haste rune, and now I turn around and go for the kill. Tidehunter's only level 4. I know I can get this kill. You see Power Shot does a lot of damage. Really easy kill to set up. The Lion now gets sprouted up. An early Medallion for the Prophet reduces that Lion's armor, makes it very easy to kill him. So if you get a rune like a haste rune, this is where you can start applying a lot of pressure to your opponent. Use it to roam around the map, set up ganks. But as soon as I do that, well, guess what Shadowfiend's trying to do? He's trying to push back that middle lane, forces me to rotate in, and so I will head back mid, and that's pretty much the only gank you're really going to see me do this game. I get a couple of kills, but what's really interesting is we end up winning this game, and I barely even leave this middle lane. I'll make a few trips out of it, but not too many. So we have a pause here. Let's go ahead and fast forward through it. Really long pause. Oh, I should probably show that again. Okay, so very cool trick here, and something you should always strive for when you're playing Windrunner, is to if you're up against a ranged hero, especially in this middle lane, you'll see the player like Deadly do it automatically, without even having to make any effort. And just waiting for the unpause to happen. But you target the shackle onto a creep, and then it will latch onto the ranged hero behind it. And so this is a perfect opportunity to talk about shackle shot. So whenever you're playing Windrunner and you're aiming for a shackle shot, you want to visualize a line going from the Windrunner through whatever target she's shooting the shackle shot onto. So again, it is a single target ability. I target the creep, and then draw a line through this creep. So you actually can't draw on the screen when you're watching your replay. Valve, if you're watching, please change that. I would love to be able to do it. But either way, we draw this line through, and then there will be a cone behind it. I don't know the exact radius, but basically there's a cone drawn behind that Depending on, like, so if my line's here, then the cone's like this. It might not be quite that wide, but that's, in fact, I'm pretty sure it's not. I think it's more like that. But you get the idea. There's a cone behind it. Shackle shot always prioritizes heroes. So if, let's say I target a hero here, there's a bunch of creeps, and there's a hero right here, it's going to latch onto the hero. If there's already a creep back here and this is a hero, it'll latch onto the creep. So you target the creep, you can target a hero, you can target any unit, and then it's that cone behind that you're really looking for. So again, it's all about trying to visualize it, and I actually have a pro replay of Dendy, and I was going to use one of his replays today, but I thought it'd be a little more instructive to focus on the pub perspective since, well, frankly, most of us who are watching probably aren't pros and would like to sort of, you know, see how to win pub games. So anyway, that's Shackle Shot in a nutshell. So this is a nice trick. Target the creep, and then it'll latch onto the hero behind it. So I'm going to go ahead and unpause here. And you'll see it does latch to him. Unfortunately, I don't really have the follow-up damage to bring him down. You know, it's a good harassment tool, and I even use Windrunner just to get up a couple extra auto attacks. And actually, we're going to keep it at 2x speed now, because I think I pretty much covered the early laning stage. The rune's about to spawn, so my goal here, and my goal every time the rune's about to spawn, is get the lane pushing towards this tower. You're going to see we're both trying to push this lane out. And we're actually going to contest the rune here. He guesses top, it's not top, and so he goes back to the lane, and then I head towards bottom. And I pick up a regen. Great rune to have at this point. So I'm just not going to leave this lane. That's pretty much what we're going to see here. And you're seeing right now, I use my regen rune, and then I immediately start spamming all my spells. Because when you have a regen rune on, as long as you don't take damage, you can just keep on spamming them. So it's a nice little trick to really harass your opponent as much as possible.
Radiant's top tower is under attack.
Yeah, ideally you do want to line it up in a straight line, but it's a little bit, like you'll see Shackle Shot latch when it's not the perfect angle. So this is a miscommunication between myself and my team here. I'm trying to go in Shadow Fiend. I thought our Prophet was coming a bit sooner. He shows up late, and well, as a result, the gank doesn't really work out. So I end up backing off. I also didn't realize he was going to Sprout because I thought we were running. But again, you see the potential there of the Sprout plus the Shackle combo. Easy way to lock a hero in place. That one really should have latched, I feel. I'm narrowly missing these kills. Vacuum misses. The important thing to note is, let's look at what's happening here over the last, what, how long has it been? Okay, over the past, like over the next 20 seconds from this point, look what happens in this lane. First we try to kill Shadow Fiend. Now there's two more heroes here. Now I'm going for a kill on Shadow Fiend. And now we're going to see even a third hero come and join the fight. I almost get the kill, I just miss it. Darkseer has to come in, and they're not done just yet. Tidehunter's about to join the fight as well. You see the TP in now. In a space of about 30 seconds, I've got 4 heroes mid, and I haven't killed anyone. We didn't get a kill, we didn't get a tower. It's just the threat of getting those kills, the threat of damaging the tower. The enemy is forced to react. So this is what I'm talking about. You can actually dominate a game just by applying pressure, by threatening kills, by threatening towers. You don't actually have to get them. That's a nice bonus. It's not essential. They've wasted a lot of money on TP scrolls. They're not farming right now. Shadow Fiend has to go back to base. A lot of things going right for us. But with all that being said, it wasn't perfect execution. We're going to see my good friend getting that ass Larry go down here. Another power shot missing. If I hit either of those, that would have been 2 kills. So, like I said, not the best game I've ever had. Not the best Windrunner performance you'll ever see. But the goal here is to focus on this amount of pressure I'm applying to the lane. It's 12 minutes. I'm going to go check the rune. Every 2 minutes, the rune will spawn, and I'm going to go check it. Always trying to push the lane right before that 2-minute mark. And I'm low on everything, so I'm just going to use the DD. Just look at what I'm doing now. I'm spamming power shot. I'm pressuring the lane. I had the DD up. This tower is going to drop from about full health to being almost dead. Just for me having a DD and auto tag. In fact, I'm going to go for a kill here, Tidehunter. He could have ravaged, and he might have been able to get a kill, but he doesn't. In the end, I pick it up. And now we get a tower. So 3 heroes group up mid. This is the benefit of having that Prophet. I think I would have gotten the tower anyway, though. But you're seeing just how much pressure I'm applying to the opponent. I haven't left my lane. I went bottom once for a gank, but for the past 13 minutes, I've just been sitting mid, farming, pushing the lane with power shot, and controlling the runes. And it's forcing huge reactions from the opponents. And you're going to see I continue to really avoid team fights, and all I do for most of this game is farm and push, and farm and push. I get a couple of shackle shots, I get a couple of kills, but really this game isn't about that. This is one way to play Windrunner, have a huge impact, and you don't even have to hit a good shackle shot. I see my team as a big team fight, I say forget about that, I'm going to go ahead and push top. And well, frankly, if we had better communication, I would have been there, but since we didn't, I wasn't going to get there in time, so what can I do instead to contribute? Pressure the top lane. And we'll actually pause it now and look again. 4 heroes on the bottom lane. Nobody in position. I know a lot of these heroes are low. running back to base. I saw that they were low during that fight. You see Bounty Hunter healing up now. You see Tidehunter out of mana, no mana to even use the TP. Certainly doesn't have enough mana to do a gush, and of course he already used Ravage. Shadow Fiend as well. He could go if he wanted to, but you know, Shadow Fiend. He's a hero that needs farm. He wants to sit this bottom lane. So I haven't actually contributed at all. My team had a big team fight. We lost that fight, 2-for-1. And we lost a Weaver who'd been getting a lot of farm, as well as a Prophet. That's fine, guys. Like, that's okay. I'm not making a mistake here. Ideally, again, I would have been there, but I'm making the best of that situation. I'm still contributing to my team. So, we're going to pause. Again, another tower taking a ton of damage, and because of the timing of this, they can't really get there in time. And one of the reasons... So, I'm talking a lot about pressure, right? And, well, you might be wondering, well, how does this apply to Windrunner? Well, the thing is, she's really great at applying that pressure. In order to apply pressure, you need to be able to either push towers, get kills, or otherwise threaten to do either of those things. Windrunner can do both of those. Also, you want to be hard to kill, because if you pressure your opponent, but then you just die, well, that kind of defeats the point. Now you're dead. It's not really pressure if you're dead, if they're getting gold experience from it. But Windrunner, very difficult hero to kill off. And you're going to see me die here, so let me pause for a second so you can see the action. But you're going to see me die here. But the point is, Windrunner's so difficult to kill that even if you kill her, look how many heroes have to show up to this lane. Once again, it's 4 heroes from the enemy team. They are going to get the kill, and it's a great kill. I immediately buy back, a little bit of rage, but mostly I just saw an opportunity to get a kill mid. Or I knew Shadow Fiend was there, I wanted to set one up. So we're going to see how that works out. A TP in mid. And actually, I should back up just a touch. Okay, so I buy back. I TP in mid. And watch what I do now. I'm going to Force Staff in and shackle from this creep to the hero. This is one of the best ways to hit a shackle shot. I mentioned it before. The reason is people tend not to expect it, especially if they're new. They're probably not going to line up 2 heroes in a row, but this is an easy shackle shot that you can hit, especially if you're in those lower brackets. So Force Staff in, shackle, creep to hero, Venomous Gale is going to hit, and now this guy's pretty much dead. Assassinate on top of it all. So I turned the buyback into more pressure. They said 4 top. Well, I'm going to buy back and kill that Shadow Fiend mid.
Bye-bye.
I wasn't verse Tide mid. I was versus Shadow Fiend. And I was also against 2 heroes row me to gank at level 1. So anyway, I get that kill. Again, more pressure being applied. Notice how we've already knocked down 2 towers in the top lane, 1 in the mid, as well as 1 at bottom. We have 4 towers down. Once you start to get these early towers down, it gets a lot easier to apply pressure because it takes them longer to get to the fight. They have less room to maneuver safely. They don't have the vision that they would like. And so as a result, you can be even more aggressive. I've already been pretty aggressive this game. You're going to see the aggression ramp up. So the first thing that I've been sort of talking about today is my movement and position around the map. You're noticing now, I think, how I'm frequently well across the river. We saw earlier, way across the river, all the way up here pushing the tier 2. We just saw me get a kill on Shadow Fiend over here. You've seen me down here behind this tower set up kills earlier. Constantly on their side of the map, in their business, making them uncomfortable. Very much like a rodent, going through your pantry in that regard. So I'm sort of going through their pantry trying to set things up. I'm playing aggressively, and that is how you create pressure. Play on their side of the map, constantly look for those kills. Now, this only works if you have the hero to do it. In this case, and if you have the position to do it. In this case, I do. But so again, it's all about this pressure. It's all about the aggression. That's our first big idea for the day, and I think I've beaten that horse to death. So let's talk real quickly about our second idea of the day. And our second idea of the day is to look at how our enemies are responding to the Windrunner and see what happens when you provide pressure. So when I do this, when I punch you in the face, what's the reaction? Well, the reaction is if you pressure your opponent, they have to respond. And we've seen the opponents respond in a big way. They'll send 3-4 heroes to try. They sent 2 heroes to gank me at level 1. And it didn't end up working out. They've sent 3-4 heroes to kill me mid a couple of times. Now they got me once. They got me once top. They failed to kill me mid. Even when they're getting these kills, they're big investments. They're really overreacting to the pressure. And as the game progresses, you get farther and farther behind. Well, it's no longer a choice because you've fallen behind. Now you have to send 3 or 4 to get those kills. So the goal here is you want to respond appropriately. And what we're seeing from this enemy team is they're overreacting to the pressure. And we're going to see a lot more of that as this progresses. So I didn't actually show my slide, so let me show you guys that one real quick. So this is an example of an overreaction that you're seeing right here. He really wants to write something down, but, you know, take it easy, guys. Have that chill pill. So, okay, back into the game we go. Okay, so it's about 2 minutes in, and for some reason I don't have fog. Okay, so 16 minutes in. I am pushing mid by myself way past the river, and you might be thinking, isn't this a horrible idea, LD? Aren't you going to get ganked and killed? I might, but that's okay. Look how much damage I'm doing. Look at them. 4 heroes. They run all the way from here. 4 heroes converge on mid. Even if they kill me, again, look at the pressure. It's not just me either. It is the whole team. Prophet pressuring the top lane. Weaver has been farming the bottom lane for most of this game. Sniper's sort of been doing his own thing in the jungle and occasionally farming top. And then me pressuring mid. It's just pressure from all areas of the map. And Windrunner is one of the best heroes to do this because of how difficult she is to kill. I'm even going to run by a ward. They know I'm in the area. They just can't set up these kills because I have a force staff, which gives me even extra survivability, more maneuverability. Makes me even harder to bring down. And I can continue to play aggressively. Now I'm going to farm their jungle. It's not safe for me to be in the lane because there's 4 heroes off the map. Only the Shadow Fiend is visible. And as soon as I start to see heroes trickle into the other areas of the map, then I go right back to pressuring. I'm actually going to check the rune, get lucky, regen rune bottom. And here we go again. So Shadow Fiend comes in mid. And one thing I want to point out about Windrunner, one of the reasons she can be so aggressive and so mobile, she's really good at farming even if she shows up late. Like a hero, let's say a hero like Bounty Hunter or Faceless Void, they have to basically walk up to the creeps to farm them. A hero like Windrunner, I can actually go check the rune, and I can get back to my tower in time. If there were a bunch of low HP creeps here, I'd get them all. In this case, I only hit 1. It's not the best power shot you've ever seen. But her farming range lets her be more active around the map and still get that farm she needs. So again, one of the other concepts we want to keep in mind is the range and the reach that your hero has. I've talked a lot about survivability, how difficult a hero is to kill. If your hero has this kind of reach, which Windrunner certainly does, well, then you have more flexibility to move around the map and still get things accomplished, still get those items you want. So I head back mid, and like I said, you're going to continue to see me just live in this lane. The enemy very much restricted to their side of the map. I'm okay with dying. This one, well, that's a miscommunication. You're going to see what happens here. I go to set up a kill. Unfortunately, my good friend Prophet has just headed bottom, and I thought he was going to come help me. So, well, I end up feeding. Pretty big feed by me. What can I say? We all make mistakes. And this time I'm going to sit through it and be dead, so we'll fast forward. No rage buyback for me as it is on cooldown. Although I wanted to. I wanted to, man. So I come back, I buy back, or I come back mid, I immediately start pushing mid again. They're all missing. And there is a risk of me dying, but I'm forcing a response. Venomancer really overextends. Tide blows the Ravage. And so that's a huge opening for us now. Tide wastes the Ravage. They had 5 heroes there. I think it's just frustrating because he had only gotten 1 chance to use it all game. But that's an opportunity. As soon as you see a big team fight spell like Ravage get wasted, you can be even more aggressive because you know they don't have that to work with. I'm actually microing the courier, not really paying attention. I end up taking a lot of damage from the Shadow Feed. But I don't leave. I bottle up. I continue to push the lane. At any given time, there's usually 2 heroes mid, just trying to deal with me spamming power shot and auto-tagging creeps. If you can accomplish that as a solo mid Windrunner, you're already putting your opponents hugely on the back foot. So again, it's all about applying that pressure. And God, I sound like a broken record here. Alright, so we talked a lot about what I've been doing. Let's talk more about how the enemies are responding. The one thing that we've noticed a lot is when they see me, they all sort of tend to converge at me at once. We're going to see Shadow Feed go down here, another kill for the team. We see 3, even 4 heroes show up. And this sort of brings me to... Actually, I am going to pause and bring up the webcam. It sort of brings me to what I wanted to talk about, like levels of response and having the appropriate response. The brand new players to Dota, they normally don't even look at the minimap, so they're totally oblivious. It's like, oh, there's a minimap? I didn't even know that. There's a rearview mirror in this car? I have to check behind me? They're too noob to even pay attention, even if they do know about it. It's like a driver who doesn't use his rear side view mirrors. They have tunnel vision. They're oblivious. That's a brand new player. That's sort of the level of response they have to most things. They don't respond to them at all. Then there's this next level of response, and that's what we're really seeing for the opponents here in this game. They're like moths to the flame. As soon as they see anything, as soon as they see me just farming mid, I'm the flame, they're the moths. They come charging in. They want to kill me. It's like I'm waving a red flag in front of a bull, and its natural reaction, it's to charge. They all just charge in. You'll often see in sort of mid to low-level games, you'll have even 6, 8 heroes grouped up mid early on, just sort of eyeing each other from across the river. Because as soon as they see their opponents grouping up mid, they're like, well, we should group up mid too. but there's no thought behind it. There's no process. What you want to do, the way you want to respond is to use your brain. Don't be oblivious. Obviously, you want to react to things you see, but don't react blindly either. Neither of those are good solutions. So what are some things my opponents could be doing right now? And I'm actually going to leave this open to the chat. What could they have been doing earlier, and what could they be doing now to try and deal with all this pressure? Any ideas you guys have, throw them out in the chat. I saw one person mention their biggest mistake is that they don't succeed in their ganks. Counter pressure, turtle, push other lanes, get farm. Sex. Come on, guys. A little more activity would be great. Alright, but yeah, basically, the one thing you don't want to do is send 4 or 5 heroes to kill one, especially when it's a hero like Windrunner. Sure, she benefits from farm, but she's not an anti-mage. She's not a hard carry. She's not going to win the game by herself, even if you're Dendi. You're not going to win the game 100% by yourself. You do need that team back you up. So if you're going to gank, do so intelligently. The Lion and Tidehunter could have smoked up and gone for some kills at mid when they're level 3 or 4. Darkseer could be looking for the Prophet in our jungle much earlier in the game. They could have grouped up as 3 and pushed bottom. There's a lot of things they could have done. They could have changed the lanes, put Bounty Hunter mid and Shadow Fiend bottom, protect the Shadow Fiend who's very easy to kill, and send the Bounty Hunter who's much more difficult to gank. When you're up against Prophet, you know there's going to be gank, so do something about it. Make it more difficult for your opponents. So there's a lot of things they could have done. Their reaction was just this: every time they see me doing anything aggressive, everybody TP into defend mid. They're very reactive about it. You want to be proactive. If you have to deal with pressure, but one of the best ways to avoid that pressure is to prevent it from getting started. Apply some pressure of your own. That was one of the great things that someone mentioned earlier, is pressure the other lanes. Yeah, that's exactly what you want to be doing. And again, whenever you make this commitment to sending 4 heroes, that's a minute, 2 minutes of time that you're not farming, you're not pushing. You don't get that time back. Your opponents, if they're spread out, they are using that time to its full effect. So with all that, we're still on this big idea too of how do you respond to the pressure, but we're about to jump into the final point of it. As we see some big dives on mid. I'm going to go for a kill here, Tidehunter, not going to get it. We end up picking off the Lion. Pretty nice job. And now we're even going to go for high ground. They have 3 dead. They're up in 20 seconds. A lot of players, especially... Oh, I forgot to put the game back. Sorry about that. We get the tower. We get a bunch of kills. I probably should show you that. Right, so we kill the Shadow Fiend. Now we're pushing mid. Big mistake here by me. I didn't know he was going to sprout. I actually power shot him to safety. So that's that's one of those miscommunication moments. But now we get 3 kills, and now we can start pressuring the main. A lot of players, even decent players, will just back off here. This is where you want to be aggressive. You know you have a couple heroes dead. Threaten that tower. Try and get some buybacks out of them. If not, do some damage to it. It forces out the glyph, so that's nicely done by us. And we're going to wait really until the last second to get out of here. As soon as Shadow Fury respawns, now there's 3 alive. We need to start to back. And we're going to back up now. But even before leaving, I throw in one last power shot just to keep that lane pushed as far as possible. And look what Weaver's doing. The exact same thing I am. Pressuring that bottom lane. Really, doing his best to prevent the push. Okay, so at this point in the game, we've applied a lot of pressure. We've gotten an inordinate reaction from our opponents. What are some of the benefits of this for my team? Well, if they're overreacting, if I'm applying this pressure successfully, it's freed up a ton of space for my team to farm. And again, it's not just me applying the pressure, it is other people. But in particular, just constantly pushing this middle lane, constantly going for kills on the Shadow Fiend. I'm forcing big reactions from them. Every time they go to gank, I'm just going to go to free camera now. Every time they go to gank me, you see 3 heroes grouped up mid, guess what my team's doing? Sniper's farming top. Weaver was farming bottom. He'll probably be back there soon. We're actually seeing Weaver head towards mid. Whenever they group up to try and react to this pressure, we're taking advantage somewhere else. This is how you want to play as a team in Dota. If you need, what the correct response for them here is when I'm pushing mid, especially when that tier 2 is up. You don't need 3, 4 heroes there. Maybe you have 2 if you're way behind. But pretty much the Shadow Fiend could have just farmed it by himself. And so, because we're applying this pressure, and because they're overreacting, we're getting huge bonuses elsewhere on the map. And, well, that's the third point that I want to bring up to y'all. And this is sort of the linchpin of the whole thing. Is pressure requires response, be sure you respond appropriately. But if you create pressure in one area... Man, I'm so bad at exploit. If you create pressure in one area, it creates opportunities in other areas. See, you whack the mole in one place here, And guess what? The mole's going to pop up somewhere else. And that's really how we're played as a team. That's how you want to be played. Not so dandy camera work. So that's the big idea number 3. If you can apply that pressure properly, then it's going to free up space for your team. Whether you're a Night Stalker going for ganks, whether you're a Windrunner pushing a lane, whether you're a bounty hunter who's running around in Viz and occasionally attacking an opponent. If you're scaring them, making them worry about getting killed, then you're going to have that positive effect of applying pressure, which is going to force a response, create some space for your team. Okay, so with all that being said, I'm going to pick up a DD rune here, and we're pretty much at the point where they're pretty far behind, very unlikely to be coming back. We're going to go to player perspective. Again, just continue to live in this middle lane, push it. 3 heroes on their team, grouped up here. And we're at the point now where it's just going to take one good team fight for us to win it, to get a set of racks. We have the map control. I almost have my Scythe of Vice up. And I'm actually going to skip a little bit ahead because it's a lot of farming at this point. So I think we get Roshan. I have Scythe of Vice. Yep, Aegis is up on Prophet. So I have Scythe of Vice. It's about time for us to push. And that's what we're going to see me do now. We're going to start with a kill on the Bounty Hunter. And as soon as we get that kill, it's time for everyone to go mid. So we all group up mid. I try to go for a shackle from the creep to the hero. A little bit out of range, but again, just constantly visualizing that, trying to set it up. I could have possibly used my Scythe of Vice, but you don't really want to waste that on a hero like Tidehunter because he does have Kraken Shell. So even if you get him low, he'll probably still get the Ravage on. So we're going to start pushing mid. Prophet here. I don't think he has Assault Cuirass, but he's very close. And if we could just get one more kill, that should secure this. Bounty Hunter's dead for 30 seconds. Tide walks in. Tide walks in and drops his Ravage. You see me 4 staff away, and let me go back to 1 type speed. Even though it hits me, it's at maximum range. They vacuum in, they drop a good wall, but this is the power of Windrunner. She just got that mobility they're looking for. So even if they vacuum you in, it's pretty easy to stay back, stay out of harm's way. I'm really not offering that much to my team in this fight, except the fact that I have a sheep stick and I'm just right-clicking reasonably hard. But it was that early start that really gave us this position. Enemy's gonna pretty much give up at this point. We get 1 set of racks. And it's a little bit more farming from here. Gets a couple more hero kills. And now we're gonna actually back off, heal up, and then we'll go for another set of racks. I think we actually wait until the Prophet finishes his Assault Cuirass. And we have a big pause here, and an unpause. So we're just fast forwarding ahead. I just want to show you guys this last team fight, just for another example of how useful Shackle Shack can be. Oh, here's something useful. Okay, you're going to see me go over to farm the jungle. This is a nice thing to do, whether you're Windrunner or Beastmaster. Anyone who's got like an AoE attack that has the long range, you can actually farm multiple camps at once. So you're going to see here, I power shot through these creeps to this camp. And as a result, I can make the maximum use out of my power shot. It's something you'll see Dendy do a lot. I mean, you don't even have to stack the camps, although it's nice. Just the fact that you're constantly able to hit 2 camps at once gives you a little bit of extra farm. Just one of those small tricks that can be helpful. So we're just waiting for that Assault Cuirass at this point. I was like, come on, man, is it done? I want to end this game. I want to end this game. Could have maybe 4-staffed and actually Tidehunter Ravages here. What the hell did he Ravage? Oh, yeah, see, that's sort of them throwing the game at this point, so we'll quickly skim through the rest.
Roots and run. I'm grateful to you.
So we're getting ready to go for high ground here. And the one thing I want you to watch is just look at me constantly fishing for the angle for the shackle. I'm trying to get over to the right. I'm trying to get over to the right here so that I can latch the bounty hunter to the trees. You know, just trying to set up that good angle. I get a kind of a, not lucky, but not one that I was really counting on. I back off. But it's just, you're constantly trying to visualize, draw that line from yourself through whatever target you're going for. Nice vacuum in here, but boy, they could really use that Ravage right now, and they don't have it, so it's a little unfortunate for them. This is a perfect opportunity. Right now, I see, I don't know why their colors are changing, but Tidehunter and Shadowfiend lined up. Perfect opportunity to hit a shackle shot. And you're going to see me actually wait a while, and then I think the same opportunity presents itself anyway. Actually, yeah, there you go. Kind of a long range, and Shadowfiend, this is a max range shackle. This is a little bit longer than you expect. But Shadowfiend walked back into it. So I'm going to hit this shackle, and I actually didn't know Tidehunter wasted his Ravage. So I'm very quick on the trigger here with the Scythe of Vice. As soon as Kraken Shell procs, I try to actually disable him again. Ends up not being necessary. We get the kill. And with that, that's pretty much the game. Yeah, Bounty Hunter won for... There are a lot of things that won them the game. I'm not saying that my play alone is what won the game. This is just an example of how you can apply pressure. There's very few guys. There's very few games where one person wins the game for their team. Whether it's a pro match or a pub game. Even when you watch Sing Sing and he's stomping, his team is helping him. Whether it's by buying wards, by setting up kills. Sure, you might carry your team, but you're not the only reason. Nobody is the only reason their team wins a game, unless your entire team is disconnected or otherwise throwing. And then yeah. But that's basically our three big ideas for today. Is as far as pressure goes, is playing aggressively creates pressure in one area of the map, and then that pressure requires a response, and it's very easy to overreact. You want to be careful not to overreact. Be sure to respond appropriately. As in life, there's an opportunity cost to every decision you make in a game of Dota. So if you said 4 heroes to gank someone, that's 3 heroes that could be farming elsewhere. Actually, sorry, it's 4 heroes that could be farming elsewhere. It's for heroes that could be pushing elsewhere. Heroes that could be placing wards. Whatever you want to be doing in the game, it's an opportunity you don't get back. And I guess our final idea is, if you're able to apply that pressure in one area, it creates opportunities in other areas. So I'm just going to show you guys the 1, 2, 3, just to sort of close things out. And this is what I want you guys to take away from this. Any tips and tricks of Windrunner, that's great. But when you guys play your next game, the next time you log into a pub game of Dota, I want you to do your very best to create pressure in that game. I showed you one way to do it, which is pushing a lot as Windrunner, spamming power shot, trying to control the runes, but not really going for kills. That's one way to do it. There's a lot of other ways too. You can play other heroes. It doesn't have to be Windrunner. But I want you all to really focus on trying to create pressure in your next game. Whether it's ganking as a Night Stalker, whether it's split pushing as an anti-mage with a Battle Fury, whether it's pressuring a tower, or even just placing aggressive wards. In your next game, focus on creating pressure. So that's your homework for the next time. And if anybody actually does the homework, I hope you all do. I'd be very curious to get your feedback on how things went, what you learned, anything else that you found interesting. Please feel free to contact me. You can leave it on my Facebook or my Twitter, both of those being /LDdota, facebook.com/LDdota, twitter.com/LDdota. And of course, you can also message me on Twitch, although I don't read it as often, twitch.tv/LDdota. This VOD will be up on YouTube, so if you missed any of it and you want to check it out, it'll be available there. But that's really what I want you guys to take away. I didn't focus as much on Windrunner. I wanted to try... If you've watched anybody get in that ass on the past, they're very much focused on the hero. I wanted to try and broaden it a little bit and focus on a concept this time. So if you have feedback on that, if you just want to learn about the heroes, I'm happy to do that. I just wanted to try something different this time. So let me know if you liked it. Give me your feedback. And with all that being said, we're now open to questions. So if anyone has questions about that game, about Windrunner, about applying pressure, about something totally unrelated, whatever it might be, the floor is yours. And I'll give you all a few minutes to, let's say about 5 minutes for questions. That was a live Windrunner game. No questions, huh? Nobody? Did you guys find this helpful? Did you enjoy? Why finish phase before Juan against the like Shadow Fiend? Well, the reason I finish phase first is phase boots they're an item where once you complete them, you get a huge bonus, especially a Windrunner, because she has a move speed buff in her Windrun to begin with. You get a lot more damage. I want to say it's plus 24 damage. A Windrunner already harasses very well, hits very hard. So I could spend that gold and complete a magic wand and get a little bit extra regen, but I didn't need the regen. I was already getting the runes. And generally, if you're Windrunner mid, you're going to have a decent shot at getting the runes, unless you're up against someone who's even better, like Queen of Pain. But most heroes she can contest the runes with. She pushes the lane well, and she's fairly mobile. So because of those two factors, you're able to get the runes, and if you get the runes, you don't need to rush a magic wand, unless you're up against someone like a Bat Rider who's got a bristleback. Not that we see him, not that he's in Dota yet, or Dota 2 yet, but if he ever is. Unless they have some ridiculously spammable spells, generally upgrade your boots will be better. But again, it is situational. If you're up against the dual lane, if you're getting ganked a lot, if you're not farming well, and you just want to make sure you don't waste any gold, then you could definitely go for the magic wand first. But yeah, that's why I went for the face boots. Windrunner's ult. Oh, man, there's so many little things that I actually just forgot to talk about. But I actually took an early point in the ult when I was getting... If you guys remember when I was going for the top tier 2, I can actually probably go back and show y'all now real quick. Where did that happen? Okay, so I actually... This is where the... So there's the big team fight bottom, right? And at the same time I'm pushing top. I actually just level up here during the course of this push. And I opt to take a point in focus fire. Now the standard build for Windrunner, like I said before, is you max power shot by 7, you get 1 point of Windrun early for survivability, then you max shackle shot, then you go back and max Windrun. Normally you won't even see pros take a point in focus fire. It's very good for pushing, and it's good for killing Roshan. Those are generally the two main times when you would want to take it early on. You don't normally get it to get hero kills, because if that's all you're concerned about, well, generally speaking, the other abilities will be better for that. So anyway, we're just going to fast forward, and you're going to see, I level up from this wave, and I take a point in focus fire. It's a situational thing. I level up right now, and then you're going to see it. Yeah, see, I take it here because it lets me push the tower a lot faster. If I didn't take focus fire, I maybe would have done a couple hundred points of damage, but with it, it's almost enough to bring the tower down. Look how fast it drops. It forces the glyph right away. So that's an example of when you would take it. If you're facing a Windrunner applying pressure, is there anything other than organizing gank you can do? Is she fairly squishy early on? $8.50 asks. Well, first thing you can do is put a hero that can handle her 1v1 in the lane. Shadowfeed can if he's played really well, but it's a very difficult matchup for Shadowfeed because Windrunner's going to be better at getting the runes, so that's one thing she is going for. She's also more difficult to kill, that's another thing going for her. And if he ever gets ganked, Windrunner is enough to bring him down. So she's harder to kill, and she's generally better at harassing in the lane. She's got higher base damage. Shadowfeed needs souls to do a lot of damage, and he's not normally going to get them early on if a Windrunner's playing well. That Shadowfeed actually had a great start. He got a lot of souls. Mostly thanks to the mishap with the courier and that level 1 gank attempt where they had 3 heroes coming for me. And also just him playing well. But he got that fast start and it still didn't matter. So, an example of a really strong hero, maybe a Queen of Pain, or even a Weaver, heroes that are mobile, that can contest the runes, heroes that can harass well, or even an Invoker, a hero that doesn't care about your harassment. Ideally, someone who can push the lane and also dish out a bunch of harassment and contest the runes. He can push the lane faster at 7, but it's not immensely so, and by the time you get to level 7, you should have already won the lane if you're playing well. So that was responding to King Duckling there. If you're playing an aggressive strat with all your team, like a dual roaming jungle and aggressive jungle, but you can't get towers, can't get kills, nor farm because the other team is responding well to ganks, what's a great response? Well, just do what you can. I mean, honestly, if you pick an aggressive lineup and you can't get anything going, you can't get kills, you can't get towers, nothing is going your way, you're probably going to lose. There are some aggressive lineups that scale well into the late game, but generally, if you pick an aggressive lineup, you need to succeed in your aggression early. So if you're not, your opponents are generally outplaying you, or you're making some mistakes. So I would say just be better at being aggressive, but don't force the issue. If a couple ganks fail, go back to farming, go try and get those next core items up. If you're Night Stalker, maybe you cut your losses and just wait for the second night to go ganking instead of trying to force things on the first night. And that question was from Bodie. Play 5-man Dota. How would you create pressure as Windrunner in your long lane and don't always have the benefit of runes? Keep him on your solo. How can one be effective? Well, here's the great thing about Windrunner. She doesn't need too many items to be effective. Like in that game, I had a 26-minute... I had really good farm this game. Let me actually see how good it was. It's about... Yeah, see, it's 26 minutes in. I have a 4-staff, Scythe of Vice, Phase Boots, Bottle, Magic Wand. This is really good farm, and we also have 6 towers. All of the outer towers have been knocked down. But, yeah, again, this is solo mid. You're not always going to get this kind of farm. You're not always going to get access to the runes. It's a great question. And who asked that question before I forget? So credit for that one goes to Panda's BDF. Well, what you can do, it's going to take you longer to get going. But Windrunner is a hero that can catch up really well. Really, as soon as you get to level 5, you're going to be able to farm. Unless your opponents are... Unless they have like a Lich Enigma. Let's say you're Dire. You're soloing this lane. You're not really able to leave your tower. They're pulling constantly. They're double pulling over here. So the creeps are just not crossing the river at all. And they even have an Lich and Enigma who's denying some more creeps from you. Well, you're pretty much screwed, but at some point the lane is going to push, and then you're going to get some experience. You might be behind, and this is where Windrunner kind of struggles as a solo here. If you're playing really well against her, she doesn't have the ability of a lone druid or an Enigma or a Prophet, where she has minions that can pull the creep way back to her tower and give her a safe place to farm. As good of an offlane hero as she is, as survivable as she is, as good at farming as she is, if your opponents play it perfectly, you can really shut her down early. But she's the kind of hero that can catch up. A well-played shackle shot, a nice power shot can get you a lot of farm, you can get some early kills, and it only takes a couple minutes really to catch up. You just need basic items, arcane boots or phase boots, maybe a magic wand. Then you could go for your force staff, your mechanism, whatever you might be building. And she's a hero that farms quickly. She has power shot, she's got a good base damage, a good attack range, so you definitely can catch up on her. We'll see this from Light of Heaven all the time. In fact, there was a funny interview, or a funny segment Dendy did, where he walked through, if you haven't already checked this out, you definitely should, but he walked through all of the Star Series, or a couple of the Star Series LAN games for the last Star Series event, and he was talking about Light of Heaven. He says, we always ask Light of Heaven, how are things going in your lane, how are you doing? He's like, and Light of Heaven's response, no matter how things are going, he plays the off lane normally, and normally he's getting, the off lane doesn't have a good time. There's 2 or 3 opponents there, they're harassing him, they're pushing his lane, they're trying to kill him if he's Broodmother, they have Sentry Wards, whatever it might be, and Light of Heaven's response is always, good, great, excellent, fantastic, swell. And the thing about it is, he'll fall behind early, but he'll catch up in the mid game. And so if you're in that off-lane position, just be patient. Wait for the opportunity to catch up. Don't try and force things too much. I think that's the biggest mistake you can make as an off-lane player, is to be overly aggressive, get frustrated because you're not last hitting well. I think this is something you don't see a whole lot of in lower-level pubs, but if you're in a higher-level pub, you might be asked to do this. So I think that pretty much covers that question. When you're up against a mid carry, how do you decide between staying mid to pressure them and stopping their farm, and going to other lanes to gank, especially if they're struggling and request ganks? I could say the biggest mistake you can make as a mid player is to spend too much time trying to gank. Let's say you're tiny, right, and you go to check the rune bottom, you get a haste rune, you're level 7 or 8, your allies bottom have been begging for help, you're on the dire side. So you're trying to get, your suicide lane is asking for help all game. You get a haste rune here, you have mana for your combo, you're level 7. Go help them out, go set up those kills. Unless it's some crazy unkillable lane or there's 4 heroes there. But generally speaking, go for the kills there. But if you're playing a hero like a Shadow Fiend, or someone who just wants to be farming, a Shadow Fiend can gank, but generally more interested in farming than someone like Tiny would be. Unless you're Korok. Or Dendy, or any of the, or Sing Sing for that matter, any of the players that love to go for big items on Tiny and play him as a semi-carry. But generally, if you're a ganker and you have an opportunity, go for the kills. But the biggest mistake you can make is to let your teams crying and complaining and whining lose your lane. Like, let's say I'm winning mid versus the Shadow Fiend. You saw me go gank bottom and I got a couple of kills. If I didn't have a good opportunity there, if I didn't have a haste and I was out of mana, and I still try and go because my team's whining, well, I'm probably not going to get the kills bottom. And now on top of that, Shadow Fiend gets a huge opportunity to catch up. So don't let your allies complaining affect you too much. Take it into consideration. If there's a good opportunity, go for it. But don't over-listen. Don't, just because they're whining doesn't mean the best. Just because they think you should gank doesn't mean that's your job. Mid's job is to win mid. Mid's job is not to win bottom and top. If you win those lanes, it's great. But that's not your role. Okay, I think that's going to do it for the questions. Alright guys, that is going to do it for the question segment. So I'm actually going to restart the stream just to finish off the VOD. So thank you all very much for tuning in. Your homework, once again, if you choose to accept it, is the next time you play Dota, I want you to pick a hero that can apply pressure. And I want you to do your damn best to try and apply that pressure. So if you want to pick Night Stalker and gank a lot, do that. If you want to pick an anti-mage or rush a Battle Fury and just farm a lot, that's great. But if you're doing that, don't be in the jungle. I want you in the lane, pushing the lane, threatening the towers. Make yourself a factor that your opponents have to account for, that you have to deal with, and push the limits. This is very important. Don't be afraid to die. It's okay if you die. It's how you learn the limits, is by really pushing them. So be very aggressive, more aggressive than you've ever been before. And if you make mistakes, well, next time you'll know better. But yeah, your next game, focus on applying pressure. If you want to play Windrunner, that's great. If you want to be another hero, that's fine too. But Just focus on applying that pressure. So that's your homework. Tomorrow we're going to have the challenge. I think that'll be on Lumi's channel. Not sure. It'll be on one of ours, either twitch.tv/luminousinverse or mine, twitch.tv/LDdota. If you're not familiar with the challenge, every week we're going to have a different challenge that goes out to the viewers. And then you all will have your opportunity to try and complete it. Whoever has the funniest or the most entertaining or instructive replay submitted, that's who we'll showcase. We've only got one so far, guys. So if you think you can beat the challenge, please consider doing it. You need 5 friends. And the challenge, for anyone who doesn't know, it's the 5-minute AFK challenge. All 5 heroes, you can play whatever you want, you can play whatever mode you want, but all 5 teammates have to be in it. If you can convince your pubbies to do it, then by all means, but most pubbies probably aren't going to want to do this. You can't leave the fountain for 5 minutes. That means from the time it says 0:00 here until the time it says 5:00 here. Your hero can't leave. You can't send rockets out of your clockwork. You can't send... you can't use any sort of global abilities. You can't use teleport. You can't send treants or summons out of the fountain. Everything's in the fountain for that first 5 minutes. Then you do whatever you want, and you try to win the game. You try to do it in style if possible. And the other key is you have to tell your opponents what you're doing. So you have to announce that you're doing this. And give them basically as much opportunity to take advantage as possible. You can wait until after heroes are picked to tell them, but you do have to tell them. So that's the challenge. If you think you can do it, please submit your replays. And you can just send the replay IDs to thedotashow@gmail.com, or you can just message me or Lumi on Facebook or Twitter. So that's the challenge, and that's what we have tomorrow. We have one, and if we don't get any others, that'll be the one we cast. If you guys have missed the segment, if you showed up late, if you missed any of the other segments, please go and check them out. They're all available on either my Twitch or Lumi's, and I already mentioned those, or YouTube, youtube.com/LDdota, youtube.com/luminousinverse, and our blip.tv. That's where you can find everything in one place. That's the dotashow.blip.tv. So thank you all so much for tuning in. I hope you found this educational. If you have feedback, let me know about it, but that is going to do it for now. So thanks again for tuning in, guys. Have a